Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with yet another Thrasher video for Eve Echoes. Today I'm answering a question that a lot of you have been asking in the comments section. That is to say, which is better at tier 5, the Thrasher Guardian or the Thrasher Fleet issue? Because they're both Tech V destroyers, which one should you go in if you're going up that Thrasher line, as I mentioned in the Thrasher video. Now in that video I talk mainly about the Fleet issue. I didn't really talk about the Guardian because I hadn't got my greasy mitts on one yet. Yeah, of course, be aware, guys, that when I'm doing a video, obviously I need to be able to actually buy the ship and all the fittings and stuff for it as well. That sometimes takes time. I don't have infinite resources in the game. Wouldn't it be lovely if the developers gave me infinite ISK and infinite skill points so I could showcase everything perfectly? Unfortunately, that's not the case. So today we're answering the question, should you go into a Thrasher Fleet issue or into a Thrasher Guardian once you hit Tech level 5? Now, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting a like on it, subscribe to the channel for all things Eve Echoes, ding that notification bell so that you know when the next video goes live. Of course, it is one every day. And like this video if you've got a topic you want answered, ask down in the comment section below or on social media. Finally, as well, I do have a Patreon. If you guys want to go the extra mile to support this channel, you can do by pledging over there. Every pledge really helps. Thank you all so much. Anyway, let's start this question by having a look at the Thrasher Guardian in detail first. The Thrasher Guardian is a unique and specialised variant of the Thrasher hull, just like the Coercer Guardian, the Cormorant Guardian, and the Catalyst Guardian are variants of their own as well. And I'm only just realising now that all of the other destroyers begin with C, except for the Thrasher. Should this have maybe been called the Crasher at one point in time? Who knows? Anyway, the whole point of a Guardian ship is as a tanking vessel. Now, if you've played any other MMO, you'll know what a tank is, but for those who haven't, basically these are like the warriors, the guys with the big sword and shield and heavy armor who stand at the front of the pack and take all of the damage. Now, the way that this works is ultimately in regard to that maximum shield field module fitting that you can see there. We'll come to that in a moment. Now, if you look at the rest of the Thrasher Guardian's stats, you'll see that with 3 high slots, it's already lost a high slot from the Thrasher 2. That is a whopping drop in its DPS capabilities. It also doesn't have much in the way of damage stats in the form of skill bonuses. You can see Destroyer Defense upgrade gives it an additional 5% in shield, and Destroyer Command gives it a 7.5% small cannon tracking speed and 2.5% small cannon damage. So even with Destroyer Command maxed out at 5, that's only 12.5% increased damage. Now, as a Thrasher line ship, though, it does still get that 25% increase to small cannon optimal range as part of its roll bonus, but the all-important +1 maximum shield field module. Now, that is what makes a Guardian ship a Guardian ship. Shield field modules cannot be fitted to anything except for Guardian ships. So, of course, that's what we're going to look at next. The Shield Field module is a unique mid-slot module that, as I said, gives the Guardian ships their capabilities. If you think of your ship's standard shields as being like a protective bubble around it that stops any incoming firepower from even hitting the armor, then what a Shield Field module does is it massively expands your shield out into a big sphere that will protect any other nearby ships too. If we have a look at its stats page here, most of this should be fairly self-explanatory, but the key points to notice are, first of all, a signature radius adjustment of 500%. This means that your ship is a significantly larger target, it's easier to lock, and it's easier to hit. That's fine, because the purpose is we want to be the ones getting shot, and in PvE, having that larger signature radius means you are more likely to get the aggro too. Perfect. More shots coming at us means we are doing a better job at being a tank. Now, if you have a look, then you've got an activation time of 10 seconds, and at the bottom, a fuel consumption of 100 gigajoules. That means this thing eats 100 gigajoules of fuel every 10 seconds, and we'll talk more about fuel in a few minutes' time. The optimal range of 7.5 kilometers means that that shield affects everything within a 7.5 kilometer range. It's a 7.5 kilometer radius sphere around your ship. Anything inside that is protected from anything outside that. Key point there, inside and outside. If both the shooter and the target are inside the shield, nothing happens. The shot has to actually fly across the shield boundary. You need to be shooting from outside the shield to inside the shield for that to take effect. Now, it has a shield resistance when activated of 52%. That means that while that big bubble is up, any shots going through it will be applied directly to your ship, but at an additional resistance of 52%. And when we undock, you'll see quite how powerful the resistance of this shield can become. Now, because the shield field module is the main purpose of the Thrasher Guardian, we then want to build heavily into that with our low slots. Of course, the first one is a small shield booster. If you're taking damage to your shields, you need something to be able to repair it, and a small shield booster is a great way of doing that. Now, the second two slots are a reactive shield hardener, which increases all the shield damage resistances by 13.64%, and a Gisty C-type adaptive invulnerability field. Same thing, an adaptive invulnerability field, again, you can see here, increases the shield damage resistance quite heavily for a 10-second duration for a 34.1 gigajoule activation cost. Basically, if you think of a shield booster as repairing your shields for every activation, what this does is it keeps your shields amplified for the time of that duration. If you activate it for the next 10 seconds, your shields increase by 36.49 across the board, all resistance types. And of course, that just keeps going. Now, these are fairly heavy on capacitor usage. You'll see in a moment I've rigged for capacitor, but because I'm intending to have a lot of things active, draining my capacitor at all times, I have also fit in a Republic Fleet small capacitor battery. What this essentially does is I can activate this for a 25-second duration, and it will dump a load of extra capacitor into a load of extra gigajoules into my capacitor so I can keep powering things. That lasts for 25 seconds or until consumed, and then it's a 60-second reactivation delay before we can use it again. The aim here is that when your capacitor starts getting low, you can pump in a capacitor battery, dump in a load of gigajoules there that will power it right the way up. Hopefully by time that runs out, your natural capacitor will have recharged a fair length of time as well and be a little bit higher, hopefully long enough to last that next 60 seconds before we dump the capacitor battery back in again. You'll see here that this does mean we don't have a stable capacitor as such, but it is 3 minutes and 14 seconds. I could put a Nosferatu in here, but quite frankly that's pointless because I want things to be more than 7.5 kilometers away from me so that the shield is actually doing its job. 3 minutes 14, though, is still a fairly lengthy piece of time, and we have managed to get that boosted with the low slots here. You'll see in the mechanical rigs, sorry, not low slots, the mechanical rigs. The mechanical rigs, I've gone for a semiconductor memory cell prototype. This came out of one of the boxes that we got for logins. That gives an additional capacitor capacity of 10.5%, and we've put in a capacitor control circuit prototype, which increases the capacitor recharge time by 7.5%. This is a 7.5% faster recharging capacitor. Very, very useful. For the combat slots, I've gone for an anti-electromagnetic screen reinforcer for an additional 30% shield damage resistance for electromagnetic. Simply put, shields don't resist much in the way of electromagnetic damage. Here, I've plugged that hole with a rig. The second one is a core defense force field extender prototype, again from the login boxes, and a flat-out shield bonus of 12%. That means if my shields were 1,000, my shields would be 1,120 with this particular thing in. And you'll see that does give us a cold defense of 5,644, the vast majority of which is within the shield. You can see there, thanks to that shield rig, we've got 30% on the electromagnetic resistance, 20 on thermal, 40 on kinetic, and 50 on explosive. And that is cold whilst docked. So let's undock and actually see what happens when we activate that shield. Now that we're actually out in space, I can showcase this in action. So you'll see that the shield field module is right there on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm going to zoom right out and apologize for my battery life. I can imagine some of you are getting conniptions from seeing that. If I activate the shield field module, you will see that up goes this massive bubble around me. That is the shield field itself. Anything within that sphere is now protected and under my shields. Now, of course, this means that if I activate all of these as well, if you remember that magic number of 5644 for my defenses, let's go back into the fitting menu and see what that has now changed to, that everything is active. 7465 with an electromagnetic resistance of 61, thermal 56, kinetic 67, and explosive 73. That is on top of the shield field itself, actually giving a 52% reduction to any damage that does make it through. Now, there is, on the shield field module, you can see there's a 99 plus. That is the amount of fuel cycles that I have available. If I open up the inventory here, you'll see that my ship is currently containing reactive gas, noble gas, oxygen isotopes, and plasmoids. These are different types of fuel, and you can get these through planetary production. Now, the two that I would recommend are plasmoids and oxygen isotopes. These are the better fuel types. In fact, for a cycle of the small shield field module here, I go through 1 or 2 oxygen isotopes, whereas I only go through 1 plasmoid every 2 cycles. So they are a little bit more expensive, the plasmoids, but they are the better fuel. Plasmoids and oxygen isotopes are the best. Now, I did try some things like suspended plasma as well, but it chews through about 20 of those per cycle, which obviously is not very sustainable. Whereas the plasmoids and the oxygen isotopes, these things are selling for dirt cheap on the market right now, and as you can see, they don't really go down at all. I'm sitting here with this live, and have those numbers really shifted on any of those? I can't tell which fuel it's using, but no, it hasn't really used much. Let's have a look. We're about to cycle through again, so see if any of these go down in just a moment. I probably should have stacked them. There we are. The oxygen isotopes went down a little bit. Oh no. Now, obviously, if you are looking to harvest these, it is planetary production. So if we open the planetary production menu and then scroll down, you'll see here on planet 6, for example, oxygen isotopes are rich. You farm that the same way you would any other planetary production. And that's how you get your fuel that way. Anyway, folks, that does cover everything we want to talk about the Guardian, so let's have a look at the Fleet issue Thrasher and see how that compares. So if you think of the Guardian as the Fleet's tank, then the Thrasher Fleet issue is by far the mage. It is the damage dealer, the guy that stands at the back and punches out with some rather hefty force. Of course, you can fit a Thrasher Fleet issue for up close and personal with the autocannons, but I by far prefer to go for this particular build, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now, I have covered the Thrasher Fleet issue previously, obviously in the Thrasher video, but just to compare this to the Guardian, you'll see that with 4 high slots, that's 1 additional high slot over the Guardian, it's an extra turret, thus a massive 33% damage increase over the Guardian, but it only has 3 low slots down from the Guardian's 4, so it does become that little bit more fragile. Looking at its roll bonus, it still gets that Thrasher 25% small cannon optimal range, but for small cannon operation and destroyer command, you now get bonuses to the tracking speed and cannon damage. Cannon damage for the Guardian, for example, was only 2.5%, whereas here it is 7.5% on the Thrasher Fleet issue. The small cannon tracking speed on the Guardian and the Fleet issue, though, are the same at 7.5%. Now, Destroyer Command does give you a bit of a bonus to shield and to scan resolution and sensor strength, but it's still not quite the same as having with the Guardian, with all of those shield fittings in the lower slots as well. This is actually not too fragile as far as Destroyers go, but it's nowhere near as tanky as the Guardian is, which of course you'd expect. Now for me, I have fitted this thing out with 4 top-tier Gisty C-type small strike cannons, 42.02 DPS per hit. These things are great fun at 20 kilometers, sort of 50% accuracy fall off. Up to 30 kilometers I can fire with these, though I do aim to be around the 12 kilometer mark. 4 of those in the top slots. The low slots are my usual setup of prop, weapon upgrade, and tank. I've gone for a smuggler small afterburner until I can find a better one, a Mark V gyro stabilizer, again until I can find a better one, and a veteran small shield booster. And that keeps me alive long enough, keeps me moving fast enough, and allows me to heat the damage here from a cold 168.10 up to a heated 205. 205 DPS is fairly hefty hitting. For the mid-slots as well, I've gone for an interruptive warp disruptor. I can actually fit in another standard warp disruptor in here as well, like a Mark V, which is a great way of just helping to tank through, to grab anyone and stop them moving away. In fact, if I'm not flying my Drumiel, if I don't want to risk losing my Drumiel, then the Thrasher Fleet issue is my 3-guild belt shark of choice for blowing up miners. Now for rigs in the combat side of things, I've gone for a cannon burst aerator tier 1 for the activation time adjustment drop, and a cannon metastasis adjuster to drop the power grid requirement of the turrets, because whew, those turrets eat power grid. That is a theme that then continues across to the mechanical slots with 2 ancillary power grid routers, just keeping up that power grid bonus of 7.5% as well, so that I can cram those turrets in. And as you can see, the power grid is literally 1 gigajoule off full there, 1 megawatt off full there, sorry. So yeah, crikey. Those turrets really do chow through. Now, for me, upgrading this, I will eventually obviously try to consolidate both of those ancillary power grid routers into one. I'll then put something like movement speed or something else in that slot there. Probably flight velocity, that's what I'd go for here. Along this side, cannon metastasis adjuster, I'll want to increase that as well so that I can rely less on the ancillary power grid routers. and the cannon burst aerator, of course, flat damage. I will just increase that flat out for tiers. Curiously enough, though, with the Thrasher, the collision accelerator and the burst aerator actually work out about equal on damage. So if you have enough power grid to fit the turrets you want without requiring the metastasis adjuster, then fit for the collision and the burst aerator. Those are the two I'd recommend. Obviously, you can also fit something like the Ambit for a little bit of extra range as well, but personally I think the Thrasher fleet issue has enough range as it is. Anyway folks, that covers everything that I want to say in regards to the Guardian and fleet issue Thrashers. Which one you would go for ultimately depends entirely on what you want to do. If you are flat up soloing, if you're wanting to solo encounters, go with the Thrasher fleet issue. It has a much higher damage output. That's what it's there for. It's there as a DPS firing machine. This thing fires cannons at very high damage, and it's got 4 of them. The Guardian, on the other hand, is much better if you want to be moving around with a small gang of other players. If you've got a couple of friends who are flying Thrasher fleet issues, for example, bring up a Thrasher Guardian with them. That way you can help them survive even longer and take down bigger threats. Honestly, a Thrasher fleet issue on its own can comfortably do a tier 7 story encounter and can do tier 7 anomalies. 2 Thrasher fleet issues with a Thrasher Guardian can comfortably do Tech 8. I haven't tried Tech 9 yet, but it can comfortably do Tech 8. We've had a lot of fun doing that so far. Anyway, folks, thank you ever so much for watching. Hopefully that has answered the question on whether or not once you hit Tech 5, you're going for a Thrasher Guardian or a Thrasher fleet issue. I imagine most of you are going for the fleet issue, but don't neglect the Guardian. They are great ships and will help your friends out no end. Thanks for watching, folks. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.